This is a postcard we found. It was blank on the back. It's obviously old, from the days of South Surry. Normally, postcards like this are sent by summer visitors back home to wherever, Massachusetts, whatnot. So I'm going to ask Pete Thompson to come up and tell us about Surrey's very first summer resident and other things related to that. William P. Stewart was his name, and he built a mansion called Sea Willows. Pete?
Good evening, folks. I would like a show of hands of how many people live on the Newbury Neck Road. Road on Newbury Neck. Newbury Neck Road, yeah. I still, more and more, have started referring to it as just the Neck. I mean, that's what we, when I was growing up, it was the Neck, and I lived in the Neck house, the Bonzi homestead, and so that's what I refer to it as. What I'm going to talk about on your map, I would say right about where the R is. Right about where on Newbury Neck, right about where the R is. That's where, when I was growing up, well, I'm going to have to tell you how old I am, but anyway, I was born in Portsmouth, New Hampshire in 1943. My family, my dad had gone, who was born and brought up at the Bonzi homestead, had gone down to work on the Navy Yard during the war. So I was born down there, but when my Grandpa Bonzi and my Uncle Earl were dying with tuberculosis, we came back to Surrey. We lived here for 6 years, and that's why I happened to be able to be here, learn to love Newbury Neck, and start school at the old Surrey Village School. So when I talk about my memories and things that I remember about Newbury Neck, it's between, actually, my memories would be from 49 to like 53, and then 60 because we came, as soon as school closed back in New Hampshire when we went back, as soon as school closed, we came back, right back to Newbury Neck. So, when I speak of Sea Willows, I am talking about what I used to refer to, and we always referred to, as the Nan Stewart place. Does anybody remember hearing the Nan Stewart place?
It's for
well,
sale.
that is what we're talking about, where Sea By 1940, Sea Willows, the summer home of William P. Stewart on the Newbury Neck Road, was badly deteriorated. And yet it retained the basic elements of its majesty as shown in its picture in this centennial souvenir booklet, which is the picture that John had there. As a boy, Osmond writes, I often visited the property, and since the doors were no longer locked and the windows had been smashed out, I would explore inside. It was a fascinating experience to search through a home that in the 1890s was the most renowned mansion in Surrey, with gables on gables and turrets and gingerbread trim, not only on the house, but on the barn and on their massive garages. The land on which this home was located, Osmond Bonzi says, originally belonged to my great-great-great-grandfather, John Young, whose father, Samuel Young, was the ancestor of a majority of Newbury Neck natives, having fathered 22 children. Sea Willows, Osmond says, during its heyday, and its inhabitants provided neckers with a glamour and an excitement unequaled to anything seen here before and since then. Of Mr. Stewart, Osmond writes, he was had a friendly reputation, loved Newbury Neck, and especially his many neighbors. On the 4th of July, he entertained the whole countryside with a display of fireworks, similar to the ones that used to be done down near the end of the neck in the 90s, in the late 90s, and similar to the ones that are now at the carrying place that's put on by the owner of the Perry's Lobster Shack. So that it's not new to have fireworks, and this is what Mr. Stewart did for the neighbors. On the 4th of July, he entertained all of them, and everybody came, friends gathered on his porches, because the house had a front porch, a side porch, and back porches. And that's where he would sit for hours and hours with his neighbor and talk about his worldwide travels for the company that he worked for. In the letter that my Aunt Olive Wanzi wrote to Sharon for her article, she said of Sea Willows, Mr. Stewart called his home Sea Willows for the beautiful willows on the place, and it was on the sea. They were our first summer visitors, and I love the fact that she called them not summer people, not anything but summer visitors, and they were the first of the summer visitors that started coming to Surrey and to Newbury Neck. And they brought much to us in those days when we didn't have any TV, no radio, no planes, no automobiles, not even a telephone. My Aunt Olive went on to say in this letter that she remembered the two daughters of Mr. Stewart, Corinne and Virginia. They used to parade up to Mr. Harden's store in their bathing suits, which were, as you may have seen in some pictures before, long dresses down below their knees with socks up to their knees with the sailor collar, and they were a pretty picture, and everybody on the neck waited until the time when they knew the girls would be out to kind of look at them in their costumes. My aunt also remembered when at the year that the family came from Quebec to Newbury Neck on a steamboat, and it sunk, and all the trunks with all of the girls and the people's clothes got ruined, and so they gave all of the clothes to the Surrey people that were very poor, as Kathy has alluded to. And my Aunt Olive said some of the garbs that we were able to dress up in, and they may not have looked as good as when the Stewart girls had them, but boy, they were some fancy for us, and we really appreciated them. This letter, it's an envelope actually, and the notice is on the back, and I'm going to tell you about that in just a moment. Because that has to do with the library. William Stewart was an author himself, and his daughter, Corinne, was an author. And the other daughter, Virginia, was an actress, and it doesn't say too much about what his sons had done from his first marriage, but he talks about the girls with the bathing suits and their occupations and that kind of thing. Well, apparently, and we do not have a date or an age that Corinne was when she had tragically shot herself with a gun that they say she was cleaning, and she died, and the family was so totally devastated that what they did was they started not coming to Newbury Neck anymore. And so Mr. Stewart took his books and the books from Corinne, and he formed the Corinne Stewart Memorial Library. And with the different places that this memorial library was housed on the Newbury Neck, I was thinking, if this was today and we took a book out and failed to bring it back, they would come after us, and then we'd be able to take it either to the Blue Hill Library or to the Eldrick Library. But the Corinne Stewart Library was located in 3 different places on the Newbury Neck. So the first place that it was at Center Hall, and that was at Rich's Corner, which on your book there, it would be where the crossroad is. When we talk about the Richard Corner School and Center Hall, it was on the crossroad. So you came up to the crossroad, turned as though you were going to Morgan's Bay, and it was on the right-hand side. So it'd be behind your house. The property right behind your house is where Center Hall would be. That's where the first Kareem Stewart Memorial Library was housed. When that was no longer in use and fell into disarray, all of those books moved from there all the way back down the neck, past Bonzi Homestead, past the Young Homestead, and landed at the Union Church across from the Bayview Cemetery. And the library was housed there. During the time when it was a regular library, my aunt always said that one day a week it would be open to the public. And she said, I don't think there were a lot of books taken out, but there was an awful lot of good times socializing with our friends that we only got to see once a week. And so that's what they did there. And so after it went from Center Hall down to the Union Church, that church then started to be in a bad way and started to deteriorate. And you heard from Kathy all the money and all the time that they spent building up the foundation, making sure that they had the flooring correct and all of that stuff. There was a lot of good things. Well, my grandfather, Hollis Bonzi, Sr., he was a carpenter and he was a cabinet maker. So when the building was in disarray, he took a lot of the pews and he built a beautiful library cupboard bookcase and filled all of that Kareem Stewart books into those. And that was what was at the Union, Church for just a short time, and then was moved back up the Newbury Neck Road to Bonzi Homestead, put in the front room, and that's where the Kareem Stewart Memorial Library finished its location. So where would I return a book if I'd ever borrowed a book from Center Hall? I'm not really sure what it would be, and we may have come across it. This is my Aunt Olive, and she wrote this letter to Sharon McGraw in 1961. And this is when she was a lot younger, when she just graduated from nursing school. But she was a public school nurse for a lot of years, and she ended up at a TB sanatorium in central Maine. And she wrote to Sharon, and she said that she remembered fondly all of the things that she learned from the books from Mr. Stewart and from Kareem Stewart. And the last years in the 40s and 50s, the Union Church was taken down to as I said, the Hollis Bonzi Homestead is where we housed the last time for the library. And unfortunately, in 1994, the house burned, and it had we lost everything. There was absolutely nothing left. I think, can you switch it back? No. You can, okay. I'm sorry, let's make it. I just wanted to explain that this house was originally just a story and a half cape. In the picture previous to this that showed all the family around there, that was in 1899, when they had taken the roof off, raised it up, built another whole floor of bedrooms, essentially, and put it back on, and that's what this is. And that's what the house looked like very shortly before it burned. So, when Sharon McGraw wrote her article, she said, Surry 35 years ago, and remember this was in 1961, she wrote, Surry 35 years ago there was a library. And it was founded by her dad, Stewart, and then it moved from all of the 3 different places. And while it was a library in existence, Mr. Bonzi, Hollis Bonzi was president, Edward Cunningham was the treasurer, and then Clifford Coggins became the treasurer. Mrs. Claude Bonzi was the secretary. So, that is it as far as Sea Willows is a beautiful mansion, the Corrine Stewart Memorial Library, and I just have to say that as a kid, I remember the Nan Stewart place very, very favorably. We spent a lot of time down there, and it was a wonderful place. And growing up on the Neck in the 50s, when I'd come back in the summertime, it was just a charming place. I'd like you to also, I think we have copies here of this. This is my copy, but if any of you would like, I've marked where Sea Willows was, you can take a look at it. But that's it, and that's a wonderful part of the history of the Neck.
Thank you, Pete. Okay, we have one more item. South Surry Shipyard. Once upon a time, wooden ships were built in Surrey at 3 yards. One was in East Surrey, one was in Surrey Village, and one was at the tip of Newbury Neck facing Blue Hill Bay. This, you may think, is a catalog page from LLB. It's not. I showed this slide to point out the third fellow from the left. His name is Henry Milliken. He wrote a number of articles about Surrey. He had been born in Surrey. That usually appeared in the Lewiston Journal and other newspapers. He wrote one story about the South Surry shipyard, and it's Colonel Coggins who owned it and ran it. And I thought Bob would like to come up and share his father's story with us.
That was LLB's personal wealth, LLB's barber. Dave Walsh was his name. This article has quite a lot of monies in it, dollars and cents. And so this was about 1853. It's about the shipyard at the end of Newbury Neck. And a dollar I looked up back then is worth $37, or between $37, I think, and $38. So keep that in mind when I go through all the list of stuff that Dad put in here. I don't know if he was getting paid by the word or what. He always liked to write a lot of lists and whatever articles he wrote. So here we go. Main shipyard paid top wages of 75 cents a day in 1853. When John Torrey, Husky shipbuilder, walked into the store and office of William Coggins at the end of Newbury Neck in Surrey, Maine, and asked for a job, he was hired right then and then. I'll give you 58 cents a day, board and room, and you work 12 hours a day, Coggins informed the young workman. If you were 21 or more years old, the wages would be 75 cents a day. But you must be a man before you receive a man's wages. According to the books of the late William Coggins, who built several ships at his yard during 1852, 1853, and 1854, 75 cents per day was top wages, with the exception of the yard foreman, who received $1 a day and found. I guess that must mean like board and room, maybe, I don't know what. Anyway, although 12 column sheets of ledger paper were unknown to William Coggins, he nevertheless kept accurate records of business transactions at his home, store, and shipyard. And it's interesting to note that no settlement of an account was completed until both parties of the transactions in the books had signed their names and dated the account when closed. 8 wooden ships were built at William Coggan's shipyard. They were the Briggs William Crawford, Martin Van Buren, George Washington, and the Mary Ann, and the schooners Francis Ellen and Lydia Jane. 2 other ships, the Martha Washington and the Colonel Coggins, were not listed on the records as being either schooners or brigs. The hired men constructed the hulls of heavy timbers from nearby forests. They frequently waved greetings to men aboard schooners passing on their way to and from Ellsworth, Surry, and Blue Hill. The schooners were loaded with lumber on their out trips, and their holds were filled and the decks loaded with molasses, I wonder what that was for, cloth, and many other articles on the return trips to their home ports. William Coggins did not furnish tools for the use of employees. If a workman needed an adze to use in the building of a ship, he purchased it at the store of his employer. Most of the articles which were charged against the individuals working for Coggins were tools, clothing, meats, and groceries. During 1853, the price of tobacco was 25 cents a pound, coffee 9 cents a pound, tea 23 cents, linen 45 cents per yard, sugar was 7 cents per pound, molasses 23 cents a gallon, whale oil 25 cents a quart, lard was 13 cents per pound, soap was 16 cents a bar, clothespins were 3 cents a dozen, diaper cloth 11 cents a yard, new meal bags were 28 cents each, calico 14 cents a yard, flour, wow, $9 per barrel, beef was 6 cents a pound, beef steak 10 cents per pound, cigars 11 cents per bunch, ginger 14 cents a pound, pepper 20 cents a pound, mouse traps 25 cents each, double-bladed pocket knives 35 cents each, pigs $3 each. I think they're less expensive today, I mean, if you calculate anyway. Palm leaves sold for 25 cents each, and were used while at church during the warmer months of the year as fans. Mr. Coggins kept an accurate record of the transactions with his family members as well as his employees and customers. During 1853, George W. Coggins, son of William, received $100 on his 21st birthday because he did not use tobacco. That's pretty good. That's like, what, $3,700, I think, right? Louisa, the wife of young George, was stricken with consumption and died on December 23rd, 1853, at the age of 18 years. William paid the bills and charged them to his son. The expense of going after a doctor for Louisa and returning him to Ellsworth was $1.50, certainly an exceptionally low price considering the distance between the end of Newbury Neck and the city of Ellsworth is 16 miles. Louisa's coffin cost $6, digging the grave was $1, 4 yards of cloth for the grave cap was $1.56, trip to Ellsworth to get the coffin was $2. During Louisa's sickness, she purchased 6 bottles of medicine at the store of her father-in-law. The medicine was known as New England cough drops, and cough is spelled C-O-F-F. And the 6 bottles cost $2.38. After Louisa's death, her husband George returned the medicine his wife did not use and received credit for the same in his father's books. Nancy Curtis, a young lady from Surry Village, worked several months at the home of William Coggins during 1854. She helped with the cooking, waited on the tables where the shipbuilders ate, fed the pigs and chickens, and did much of the dusting and chamber work. Her salary was $1 a week. And if she was sick a day or two during the week, those days were deducted from the total number of days she worked, and she was paid accordingly. She started to work for Mr. Coggins the first day of February and quit the third day of July. Her wages for the period amounted to $16.66. But during her employment, she had received 12 cents in cash, okay, and calico, postage stamps, shoes, thread, and soap, to a value of $16.01. So Mr. Coggins gave her 53 cents when she left his employment, and she was paid in full. I think he shortchanged it because I think he owed her 65 cents, but maybe I can't do arithmetic. Little is left today to denote the once busy shipyard, was operating at the end of Newbury Neck in Surry, Maine. Gone are the huge farms along the neck, which is a peninsula 9 miles long. The summer people purchased most of the old homes and farms. They have modernized their homes and built summer cottages. And it's safe to assume they didn't employ any carpenter, plumber, electrician, painter, or handyman for 58 cents per 12-hour day.
Just to wrap that up, overall, in the 3 shipyards in Surry, Surry ranked number 7 in Hancock County in the number of wooden ships built during this period.